Welcome back to the FanSpeak Network and another episode of Sibling Showdown. This is the DFS edition, the short slate strategy edition, and we're going to be talking week 2 short slate strategy in just 1 minute. That is right. It is week 2 of the NFL. We had a great week 1 and we're ready to roll it into week 2. And so we are talking week 2 daily fantasy on DraftKings, short slate, early only, afternoon only. And I'm of course joined by my sibling, my brother, Steve. Steve, I know week 1 was good for you, but tell us about it and tell us what you're thinking for week 2.
Yeah, no, week 1 was very good. DFS wise, full slate. Early only was okay. Afternoon was really strong. I was very high on Baker double stacks, very high on J.K. Dobbins, Kenneth Walker. Didn't have any like massive hits, but just very profitable week 1. Looking forward to rolling that into week 2 and just building from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked at length last week in this very show and all week on our betting shows. Again, like and subscribe if you haven't already to the FanSpeak Network. We, of course, have free content on fanspeak.com. We've got articles, we've got the free betting card, but on here we are doing like 7 or 8 shows a week, every single weekday covering daily fantasy as we are doing right now, underdog dailies, and a ton of sports betting shows. And if you like sports betting, I'm going to put this ticker on the bottom. Check out our Dub Club. It is a free 7-day trial, and you go to that link, which you can also find on the NFL betting card. Again, NFL betting card's free. The guys, by the way, were 5-1 last week, so they're going to look to run it back this week. But check out the NFL betting card. The Dub Club link is there. 7-day free trial, and it's just $20 a month, and you get all our alts, touchdowns, parlays. I'm sending a summary now, but we had 3 parlays last week, 2 of them massive. Really, definitely a positive ROI on alts and anytime touchdowns. So it was a very, very profitable week for us, and we want it to be for you all too. So with that, we can get into DFS talk, and we got to say hi to our guy, Tim. Thank you always so much for joining us. Let's go. Happy Friday. Need some help this week. I stink at picking players last week. Well, Tim, we are going to help you. Way too much Adams. Yeah, that one hurt me a little too. But yeah, as you know, we were high on the Bucks, and that helped buoy me in the DFS slates. Just being so high in the Bucks and some of those, I was able to dodge Adams, but we were high on Adams too. But yeah, I think for Steve and I as Washington fans, our pain can be trying to make money off our pain, and of course targeting that horrible Washington defense. We'll get to that, I'm sure, with the Giants-Washington game. But Steve, let's break it down. First, of course, we're going to talk early only. As I'm doing that, bringing over the DraftKings screen, it's a big early only slates. I believe 10 games early only, 3 games afternoon only. It's a little more fun when it's a little more evenly distributed. Hey, but we can still work with that. You took down, you did, came in like 3rd or 4th in a 3-game slate on Thanksgiving Day. So we can do well in those too. So break down the early only specifically of the nature of it as I bring over DraftKings.
Yeah, so early on, like you said, it's 10-game slate. So it's kind of like we can treat it kind of like a main slate. We don't have to overstack if we don't need to. We can, just pick our spots and honestly kind of just build a really good team and look for value. Ownership is going to be relatively spread out like we'd expect in a main slate. So, we don't have to get too cute anywhere and just kind of go from there. So I'm treating this mainly like a main slate. I'm going to be slightly different. I'm going to treat it, maybe use this to be on some players that I don't do as much in main slate and just test them out a bit more here in early only. But, particularly if I don't think they necessarily have the ceiling for the full slate. But I think this is a strong group of games. There's some, couple elite offenses, couple big spots we can target. And definitely some misprices we can gravitate towards.
All right, well, let's get into it. Let's go to first the games you want to target. I kind of know which games I want to target on this slate. And I actually do think what I like about the early only specifically is there's just a few where I feel like there could be that like back and forth, or a run funnel or a pass funnel, or it just, to me, it feels like some clear spots. And that means, fading a lot of games, which is scary too. But like you said, you can be more evenly dispersed. I talked on another show how I actually in early only might be very, very, very heavy on the Bucks Lions passing game. That's one you can mention. And what other ones specifically games are you targeting in this 10 game early only?
Yeah, so that's the specific game where I love both sides. The other one where I kind of like both sides is our game, the Washington Giants game, because they're two terrible defenses.
Not great offenses though either.
No, but arguably the two worst defenses in the league this year. And it does sound like Malik Neighbors is going to play, so that's a big boost for the Giants. Washington-wise, obviously Jalen Daniels is in play. Brian Robinson's going to be in play. Sure, no receiver got there last year, but this is going to be the week where a receiver could get there, and vice versa for the Giants. We know Singletary is going to get almost all the usage in the backfield. We saw Rashard White getting catches, getting rushes, just having a big game. Daniel Jones, Jim Daniels, we both know they have rushing upside and ability to add points that way. So they are definitely in play. So those are the two games where both sides make sense. But then there's other areas where, like Baltimore, I love Derrick Henry in this matchup. Chargers, I like pieces. I could maybe do a Herbert stack, but what I do love is J.K. Dobbins. You could pivot to Gus Edwards because Dobbins, I do think, is going to be pretty highly owned. And, Gus Edwards would be excellent leverage play. Also, Lad McConkey is going to be, I think, a very strong play. They're underpriced against this terrible, terrible Carolina defense. Speaking of bad defenses, these are the three worst defenses probably in the league right now: Carolina, Washington, Giants. So let's target these teams. Let's exploit these teams. The other one side that very well could go blowout, but I still like it because maybe there is some pushback. Because even though everyone expected the Saints to be a bad offense this year, they blew the doors out of the water of Carolina. And sure, you can say it was bad defense, but they still blew the doors out of the water, and they might be able to push back a little bit. Also, it's worth noting that, we've seen the Dak and the Cowboys be able to get there in 3 quarters before, many a time in recent years. Same thing could happen here. CeeDee Lamb in essentially 3 quarters, less than 3 quarters last week, had 10 targets, multiple rushes, didn't get there overall, but that kind of usage, he had 10 targets and 32 pass attempts. I mean, that's massive. Yeah. And especially with no Jake Ferguson now, that could just, be more of the same. So those are the types of games that I want to exploit. There's plenty of other games I'm just kind of Xing off. If somebody from Cleveland or Jacksonville gets there, they're gonna beat me. Yeah. But I'm just not gonna go down that road.
Same with like Seattle, New England. For me, that's a cross off game for me in this slate. So yeah, the other ones, it's more like taking pieces, like you said, like Henry, Dobbins. Maybe you get there on the Dallas side, or if you want a New Orleans run back. I could see a case for like Anthony Richardson or some Green Bay, but it's just with Malik Willis playing, I'm just not going to go there. So yeah, there's a lot of cross-off spots. I do think Jets Tennessee could have some very contrarian pieces that are interesting. Garrett Wilson and Calvin Ridley being the two biggest, if you do like a chalkier build, because obviously we know there's some big chalk on this slate, even the 1 p.m. slate. If McCaffrey's out, we know Jordan Mace's is basically free square, but going to be so chalky. Neighbors himself, rightfully so, is going to be pretty damn chalky. And probably Chris Godwin from the Bucks game. Those 3 pieces are probably going to be the chalkiest, just because price considered. You're getting value on Godwin in that offense, going against Detroit, and it should be a pass funnel there. You don't want to run against Detroit. And then so Godwin, Jordan Mason, of course, cheap price if McCaffrey's out. And then who did I mention as the third piece? Neighbors. Neighbors. Yeah, he's looking to be fair. And even, he looks like he's good to go and cleared and all that stuff. So those 3 pieces might be chalky. But like you said, you can get contrarian in other spots, whether it's a Chargers piece, and Dobbins might be chalkier, but like whether it's like a McConkey, a Derrick Henry, Dallas pieces, some other Washington pieces, Jets, Titans, so I definitely think, remember, it's not like you have to be contrarian across the board. So Tim in chat asked from Washington, Eckler or McLaurin. I'll answer quickly first. For me, I don't see myself getting there. I could see them getting there, but I'm just not going to overstack Washington or prioritize Washington outside of Daniels, because we saw it last week. It was just Daniels that got there. And it's because he had 2 rushing touchdowns. I mean, he missed Terry on a long shot. He decided to run when Terry was open on another shot. So we have a terrible offensive coordinator that doesn't use motion and scheme our best player open. So, I'm really hiding my thoughts and feelings, but Terry's McLaurin's my favorite player in the league, and it's just very upsetting that they can't get him open. So I then can't prioritize to spend money. Maybe you want to pay down for like a Luke McCaffrey or Ertz, but that doesn't certainly feel sexy. There feels like there's probably some other better plays even there. And then, even Eckler, Brian Robinson, could they get there? Yes. And I think they're going to come in lower owned, but I don't know. I just like other pieces more. What are your thoughts on that, Steve, before we get into the other stuff?
So if you're playing Daniels, I would, and you have the money to afford up, I would play McLaurin. But I agree with you.
Really? You would prioritize McLaurin?
In early only. I'm not going to do it in main slate at all. Okay. But this is where I will be a little bit, because I think he's going to be a little bit more contrarian, and he is cheap. And so, he's under 6K for a receiver of his skill set. He had 4 targets. He obviously should have had more. They're likely to throw more this game.
And theoretically should have more success too.
No guarantee. But one thing is, what you can do is just do Daniels and Brian Robinson Jr. You're going to get almost all the touchdown equity on this team. And so if this game does become like a higher scoring game, where Washington puts up 30 points, like you could get all the touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm just so cynical and skeptical about both offenses still that I kind of am just like, Daniels and Neighbors are the only thing. But I'm more of a hand builder, less total entries. Steve's running more entries than me, so I totally get him doing more builds. And so it depends what type of builder you are or how many lineups you're building too. I would say to answer that question, I could see your point about, prioritizing getting some Terry in this if you're doing more lineups. But if you're only doing like 1 to 3 lineups in early only, I don't know that I see that as a priority. But Tim liked the points. He says, can't imagine New England, Seattle has a lot of points, a lot of time consuming drives. Definitely agree with that. Albert in chat. Hello, everyone. Great to see you, Albert. Always good to see you. You mentioned he forgot about old B-Rob. And, I was on a show this week on Fantasy Football Today DFS that Mike McClure mentioned. Brian Robinson could have had 3 touchdowns, so, that is an interesting leverage play. Whether you're playing a Daniel Jones stack and running back with Robinson, that is like an interesting leverage play. Again, I don't know that I'll get there just because I personally, with only playing like 1 to 3 lineups in early only and afternoon only, I'm prioritizing what I love. And what I love is the Bucs Lions. So why don't we get there and now, Steve, and talk about, we talked about the game stacks we're basically fading, the game stacks we're focusing on. Now let's try to build something. And we kind of through that talked about other players that we liked, obviously, like the more chalky ones like, Dobbins and Mason and Neighbors, and the more contrarian ones like Henry. And we talked about Godwin. Yeah. And another contrarian piece would be Evans. I mean, the more expensive ones are going to be more contrarian on this slate, essentially. So Henry, Evans, Lamb, again, in the Jets Tennessee game, if you pay up for like a Ridley, Wilson or just one of them, those are going to be very contrarian pieces. And it's not like you need to get contrarian all over the place. So do you want to build a Baker stack and lean into what, or do you want to build like a Daniel Jones or Daniel stack? What do you want to do?
Let's build a Baker stack. Worked last week. Let's
run it back again. Okay. So when you start a Baker stack, do you go the chalkier piece, the contrarian piece, or double it on
for right now, let's do Evans. Okay. Maybe Godwin gets thrown in there also, but
we saw Detroit. So Detroit, a couple points to make from a just matchup standpoint. is you do not want to run against Detroit. Definitely a pass funnel. We saw this very same game be a high total in the playoffs last year in the Dome. I think it's going to be more the same. You want to target both these teams through the air, and I especially like targeting the Bucs side through the air. So I don't mind if you want to double stack it, but let's see what we come up with here. And Evans, starting Baker Evans, is definitely very contrarian, because what's going to be the two most chalky quarterbacks are clearly going to be Daniels and Daniel Jones, because you paid down for them. And, that does offer against the two crappiest defenses. So where do you want to go from here, Steve?
Let's go a little high and go Amon-Ra. I do love Jameson Williams. I know he's got the Q tag. I'm guessing he plays. But let's go. And I think that alone, having Evans and St. Brown, makes us very unique, regardless of what chalk we put in afterwards.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to need a free square of assuming that McCaffrey is out, plugging in Jordan Mason. So we do that. We throw in a cheap defense. What's your favorite cheap defense on the slate?
Favorite one is probably the Giants.
There it is. I mean, it is. Our
Giants, and I will say Green Bay. I know the Texans didn't get there against Richardson last week, but Green Bay defense is very good. They gave Jalen Hurts and the Eagles a lot of trouble.
Yeah, no, I really like the Packers defense a lot against, again, these rushing quarterbacks take sacks. They tend to make mistakes and take sacks. I mean, God knows Fields is like the poster boy for that. Okay, so Mayfield, Mason, Evans, ASB. So we got the game stack. We got the chalk free play. We got a cheaper defense. Where do you want to go from here at tight end?
So
Bowers is one of my favorite on the slate.
I do like Bowers, but I will say probably with paying up for both Evans and St. Brown, we might have to go even cheaper.
So what are you looking at?
I'm looking at. I think you do have some interesting plays here. Jordan Akins, I think Luke Schoonmaker are both very.
Ferguson's still live to play, correct?
Yeah, but
it's doubtful. It's doubtful.
Yeah, okay. I think that's almost
doubtful means unlikely. Yeah. So, so Schoonmaker, Akins, as far as the cheap plays.
Yeah, Hayden Hurst would be another $3K guy.
Did you get how many targets did you get last week?
He got 3 targets. And again, just the matchup is so good.
Yeah. No, there definitely are some cheap tight ends on the slate. I do like Bowers, but you can save 1,000 or plus by going down into this area. So I like that. That leaves us 5.8K. Let's just fill out 1 or 2 more spots. Where would you go from here?
So to me, I like going Dobbins here.
Yeah, that one's a little chalkier, but again, you have the whole entire game stack you currently have is pretty contrarian, because Mayfield, Evans, ASB, it's going to be more likely, potentially Goff will be higher owned, and Jameson will be higher owned, Godwin will be higher owned, and I like all those plays. I mean, actually, I like the Mayfield side better, but I did one where I did do, and I'll just say this because we're not going to build this one out too, but I did one where I did do Mayfield, Evans, Godwin, ASB, Jameson, and then I just filled it in because I think that could be if it's a total passing shootout, you're just telling a story of how the whole slate goes. But let's finish this one out. One more pick: Mayfield, Mason, Dobbins, Evans, ASB for the stack, Akins for the cheap piece, Giants defense for a cheap defense. You could fill out one more play and leave one open. What would you do?
I'm going to go, just since we talked about it so much, I'm going to go Malik Neighbors against our defense.
Yeah, sure. That makes a ton of sense. Okay, and a nice price point of 5.19K, which leaves you 6.3K to fill that out. Yeah, that's really nice. I like that a whole lot. Okay, well, I think that covers the 1 p.m. Again, I think we covered the games we don't like, the games we like, the chalk pieces, the contrarian pieces. Again, just find a way to get maybe just 1 or 2 or 3 contrarian pieces in there. And, if they hit, that's going to be massive for you. So, but find those game stacks that you think are right. And again, I think Steve and I are leaning the most towards Tampa, Detroit, Washington, New York. Any other final thoughts, Steve, as I'm bringing over the 4 p.m. slate?
No, I obviously if you are doing multiple lineups, this is where, we did it one way where, we went cheap tight end. But if you're paying down for like a Godwin or Jameson Williams, you could have almost the exact same build and pay up at tight end, just by switching, 1v1 or essentially a 2v2 tight end boosted, and then Godwin from Evans or Jameson from ASB. So that could be the way to just have a very similar build that you're happy with, and change it up.
Yeah, we got Andrew Robb in chat. Joins a good friend of the program, joins a lot of FanSpeak Network shows, and we appreciate seeing you in here. He said you two are matching with red, Bruni and Andrew match with blue on Wednesdays. There's gang war going on. Crazy cool. I love it. Or I think it was Mike Robb that also had a suggestion, Steve, that you and I should make a bet each week, and whoever loses, similar to the Wagers with Friends, which by the way is tonight. Whoa. It is later tonight at 9:00. So check that out. I'm having David on and from Hulk Bets, and I will be on at 9:00. And then Andrew and Justin, speaking of them, and they're blue, they'll be on at 9:30 betting show. So 2 betting shows coming at you, 9:30. Good to see you, Mike Robb. But he suggested you and I should do a wager bet, and whoever loses has to tell the winner has to tell a embarrassing story about the loser. You have plenty for me. You're much more normal than me, so you have plenty for me. I don't know that I have as much ammo on you. Do I? I mean,
probably not.
I could think of like a couple off the top of my head. I'm like, oh, that would be so embarrassing if we told that. Okay. Tim says tight end's tough this year. There are usually some locks, but it's hard to pick this year, kind of rolling the dice. Yeah, and that's why honestly in DFS, I usually punt the tight end position. In best ball, I mixed my portfolio, but I still did a lot later on tight ends, which is basically like punting the tight end position. And same with the underdog daily streets. Like I sometimes will get there and paying up for tight end. This week I've drafted a couple McBride lineups already, or those kind of things. But yeah, sometimes I just wait and do it at the end and do a scroll down option because we don't know. I mean, last week showed it. Last week tight end was terrible. So, okay. Afternoon only, Steve. Let's talk it through here. Only 3 games. We've got the big one, Rams, Arizona, indoors, obviously at Arizona. Cincy, KC, in Kansas City. Cincy looks like crap. And then Pittsburgh, Denver is starting again. And the rookie Bo Nix had a rough first start, and then going against TJ Watt and company is not a good second week for him. So give me your quick dynamics breakdown of this slate, and then I'll give you mine, and then we can build one.
Yeah. So with 3 games, we absolutely can go overboard on 1 or 2 teams, and just really focus on that. Definitely, I think we can look at it differently. And tight end is a perfect place to start. While there is a cheap option on the tight end slate here, in the early only with so many tight ends, it's going to be spread out. Where if one of the more expensive ones has a big game, might not kill us because they're only 10% owned or something like that. But if Travis Kelce or McBride have a big game, they're going to be 40% owned. So it could kill you. So you do have to be more cognizant of that, because with only 3 games, ownership, particularly at the 1 seed positions, quarterback and tight end, but even at any key position, any key player is going to be more highly owned. So
that's a great point. That is a good point. You need to dodge it more, essentially.
And same with even an elite player. Like we dodge CD Lamb. We're making a bet that obviously Evans and ASB are better than CD Lamb. Here, if you're doing that and dodging Jamar Chase, and Jamar Chase outscores, Cooper Kupp, you're just buried. Just that's the way it is. So just be aware of that. Understand that. You're just kind of making a bet on that. But yeah, I think the other thing is, while you could have, especially as we've seen the way this NFL season's going, and last night included, running backs are very important this year.
Running backs matter still. Yeah.
So you could have done 3 running backs on the early only slate. I absolutely think it's even more in play for this afternoon slate. Just running every team, even Denver, now that Estime is out, even Cincinnati, even if you think that they're going to get stomped. I mean, Zach Moss, was one of the few bright spots last week. So to say nothing of Pacheco, Najee, Kyron Williams, and Connor. So, you absolutely could do a 3 running back team, and probably is what I'd recommend.
Okay, well, why don't we start there? Because I love on this slate, I think you start Pacheco, Najee, and one of Connor or Kyron. No, I will say, to me, I'd be playing Cup in all 4 p.m. only and just eat the chalk. So, but that does make Kyron. But I think you could do both him. If you did both of them, then you're going to get cheap other places. But, so why don't we do a 3 running back build? Who do you want as the 3rd running back?
So honestly, I think it's a toss up between. Both Kyron and Connor are just going to be excellent plays. I mean, they're going to be on the field almost the entire time. Both highly involved, both in passing and run game. I think Connor has a bit of an edge right now, given the injury issues for the Rams backfield. But we know Sean McVay is just so great at scheming Kyron. So I will be playing both a ton for that reason. But Connor, I think, has a little bit of an edge here.
Okay, I like that. So I plugged in Pacheco, Najee, Connor. I think 1 to 2 touchdowns are in play for all those guys. Cup, to me, depends how many lineups you're playing, but I'm playing 1 to 3. I'm going to play Cooper Cup. He got 20 targets last week or something.
Yeah.
So, obviously, especially with Puka out, I love Cup this week. They actually have a smart offensive coordinator, unlike Washington, and they do scheme their best player open. So I know they'll know to cover Cup, but they scheme their guy open, as we saw on Sunday night. I plugged in Steelers defense against rookie Bo Nix. So where do we go from there, Steve, to finish this out?
So yeah, you're going to have to get cheap at receiver to pay up.
What stack would you focus on?
So look, especially in the shorter slate, Matt Stafford is very much in play with Cup. I probably like Kyler the most because.
But would you do that with Connor?
Yeah, because I think Connor, catches balls out of the backfield, and he had 33 yards receiving last week, and just you could get all the touchdowns. I think the Rams defense without Aaron Donald is not good this year. So those are like kind of my 2. You can always pay up for Mahomes, but we're at a position where we can't really afford any of his stats.
Yeah.
So,
I was going to say, if you plug in a cheap tight end, I know you mentioned then you have to dodge Kelsey and McBride, but if you did plug in a cheap tight end, then you're left with 5,200. Now, if you plugged in one of the expensive tight ends, be it Kelsey or McBride, then you're going to have to get cheap, but there are cheap options. So, you've got basically the Demarcus Robinson 4K. Where's the other Rams option I'm looking for? Tyler Johnson 3.3K. Yeah. So you do have cheap options. I'm not saying you need to do it that way, but I do think that, why don't you go ahead and plug one more in, or do you want to leave a actually it would probably make more sense to do McBride with Kyler, and then what would you do from there?
So
and just hope you're hoping, the hope is, I'm building out this Arizona big Rams. I'm guessing one of your cheap plays might be another Rams player. Building out this big Arizona Rams game that I hope shoots out, and I hope Chiefs, and Steelers win on the running game, basically.
Yeah. So no, I think that's the way to approach it. You do have some more limited options, especially if we are going with these 3 running backs. And Steelers defense, but I do love the Steelers defense, obviously.
You could also do the Chiefs defense. obviously,
yeah,
Burrow looks like shit. So,
but Burrow didn't turn the ball over, and he actually,
he took sacks though, didn't he?
He took a couple sacks, but Burrow completed 72% of his passes. I think people are making the death of Burrow and the Bengals a little overblown.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I would point to it. I do like McBride, and probably go Tyler Johnson.
So go to the cheap Rams piece. So again, you're building out a massive Arizona stack with Kyler, Connor, McBride, Cup, Tyler Johnson, 3.3 play, and then you've got the correlation of Najee Steelers, and then you're just saying hopefully Pacheco gets 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So, if you wanted to build out the Rams stack further, or you could get a piece of that. He's going to be chalky, but it is Sovis or Trent Irwin or something like that. you could do that. So I actually like this. I mean, or again, we know defense is volatile. You could punt off defense and go up at receiver or something like that. Do I like the Najee Steelers correlation, like the Steelers best? Yes. But defense is volatile, especially when you're only dodging 6 defenses. What if they all score anywhere from 4 to 8 points? Then if that's the case, then maybe punt down and get a better receiver option. That's an option too. But I like this shell, Steve. I like this a lot. I like both the shells we built. And honestly, this was kind of where I was leaning as my favorite leans for early only, afternoon only, like stacking up Tampa, Detroit, and filling in some more contrarian, neighbors and some more contrarian pieces, stacking up Rams, Cardinals, and then just filling in and telling a story. So those are my final thoughts. What are your final thoughts for this slate?
I absolutely agree. And I will say probably one cheaper defense that would probably be probably the lowest owned is the Denver defense. But if it's Justin Fields, it's still Justin Fields at the end of the day. Guys just taking a ton of sacks, turn the ball over a ton. That would definitely
be a defense I'd go down to, because just as an example, as I said, if you want to go down defense, that at least gets you up to the Greg Dortch range, which is, Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, pick your favorite. You could go even heavier on that game, or you could, play the double stack of one of them and Connor, and then go down to who is the other, like a Denver running back, something along those lines. So
and just keep in mind, even though not a fan of Denver, I will say Sutton and Reynolds. Sutton had 12 targets. Reynolds had 8. That's the kind of targets that very few receivers week 1 got.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind for just having stacking options. Sure, they're inefficient targets, but it can just take one. No,
that's a great point. I like that point. Again, it's against a tough defense and Steelers, but likely playing from a negative game script, I think is viable. So I definitely think that's viable. All right. I like that. Any final thoughts for the people before we get out of there? Like as Tim says, these are the plays. So I like it, Tim. Good luck to you. We always appreciate you joining us in chat. There's a 9:00 show, 9:30 show. Those are both sports betting. And then if anybody subscribed to our Dub Club, that'll be all our bets will be out tomorrow. And all the plays are up for free of the sides and totals on fanspeak.com right now. So we appreciate everybody who joins us in chat, joins us on Fanspeak YouTube, and checks out all our content on Fanspeak or Dub Club. So we appreciate that. Steve, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No. Good luck to everyone. And
I was going to say good luck to people.
No, good luck to everyone. And just take advantage of some of these short slates and guys that we normally wouldn't be playing on regular slates.
I think that's an excellent point. I'm just joking with you. All right. That was fun. Again, be back at 9:30 for 2 great betting shows tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. For Steve, I'm Meg, and good luck this weekend. We'll see you next time.